The world's most remote populated island is home to black sand beaches, a bunch of cows, and an active volcano. Tristan da Cunha was named in 1506 after the island, located 2,816 kilometers from South Africa and 3,360 kilometers from South America, was spotted by a man named none other than Tristan da Cunha. Unfortunately, due to rough waters, he was unable to make it to the island, and so it wasn't until 1810 that the first man stepped foot on its rough shores. His name was Jonathan Lambert. He attempted to rename the island to the Island of Refreshment, but he was killed 2 years later in a boating accident, so it didn't stick. In 1816, the island was claimed by the United Kingdom, and today there are a total of 267 people living there, along with one hospital, one movie theater, and one grocery store. However, any requests for food or drink must be made months in advance because it takes an incredibly long time for produce to be shipped to the island. All electricity on the island comes from diesel generators, and all of the inhabitants are farmers, living in the island's only village, Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. And of course, there's the matter of the active volcano that last erupted in the 1960s and is due to erupt again at any moment, but hey, clear blue water and black sand beaches more than make up for the island's possible impending doom, right? Right? Cold, lonely introverts with an incredibly high IQ are likely how most people would describe the inhabitants of McMurdo Station, a science and research facility operated by the US government through the National Science Foundation located in Antarctica. In the summer, the station is home to 1,258 residents. In the winter, the number is a lot less, about 200. Why? Well, because the average temperature of Antarctica in the summer is around -10 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, while the average temperature in the winter is -49 degrees Celsius, -56 Fahrenheit, with the coldest temperature in Antarctica ever recorded being -89 degrees Celsius, -129 Fahrenheit. Also, during winter in Antarctica, it's dark all the time, and there are no incoming or outgoing flights for the duration of the entire season. Honestly, that sounds like hell. Cold, dark, icy hell. Easter Island is best known by many as the place with the massive stone structures that resemble humans or gods or maybe even aliens, but to the 4,000 people who live there, it's known as home. While tourism has become a booming part of the economy on Easter Island, it wasn't always like that. The island is incredibly isolated, with the nearest inhabited landmass residing 2,075 kilometers away, and the shortest flight you can take to the island being 5 to 7 hours long, depending on the wind. For a long time, the people living on Easter Island were completely shut off from the rest of the world, which of course makes the iconic stone statues of Easter Island that date all the way back to between roughly 1100 and 1650 AD all the more impressive. You know what's not impressive though? Marrying your wife's cousins. But I guess that's what happens when you live on an isolated island northeast of New Zealand with a population of 62 people that all stem from the same bloodline. Palmerston Island's the name, incest is the game. The island was founded in 1774, and its inhabitants are considered to belong to one of the most isolated communities on the planet. The first permanent resident of the island was William Marsters, his wife, and her two cousins, who he later also married. Together, the three of them populated Palmerston Island until Marsters' death in 1899, at which time he had fathered a total of 23 children, who then went on to populate the rest of the island. There are no shops or banks or markets, and money is only used to sell and buy produce either leaving or arriving to the island. Electricity is available for just 6 hours a day, and because there is no true water system, rainwater is an incredibly valuable resource to the people of Palmerston, who would literally die of dehydration without it. Along with the rain, the islanders rely heavily on coconuts and fish, and while the journey is difficult, tourists are welcomed to the island with open arms and welcomed into the home of the locals, well, because there's no hotels. There's isolated by distance, and then there's isolated by choice. In this case, the choice of the Havasupai peoples living in Supai village in Arizona in a side branch of the Grand Canyon known as Havasu Canyon. The tribe has lived in the area for the last 800 years, and they don't like to be disturbed by the outside world. Unfortunately though, in the 1800s, they went from having 1.6 million acres of land to just 518 due to colonization. The blue waterfalls and springs located in the village are considered to be the life source of the Havasupai people, providing fresh drinking water to the 208 residents of the land. Residents which thrive on irrigation farming, hunting, and solidarity. Any communication sent to or from the village are done through mail, which is delivered and collected by a mule. If you wish to visit the isolated village located in the heart of one of Arizona's biggest attractions, you can, but of course there are strict rules in place to ensure the utmost care of the protected land and its peoples. Also, temperatures can reach up to 46 degrees Celsius, 115 degrees Fahrenheit, and the village can only be reached by tourists via hiking trails, so do with that information what you will. Pitcairn Island has a population of just 50 people and a pretty bad reputation. Despite being the world's least populous national jurisdiction, Pitcairn Island also holds the world record for being one of the first territories to give women the right to vote, and for having the highest number of sex offenders per capita, which is incredibly embarrassing and probably why the UK doesn't recommend it as a hotspot tourist destination, despite the island being an absolutely stunning British overseas territory. I don't blame them. You can move there, as the island is currently accepting new residents, but I don't recommend it. Besides the embarrassing record held by the island, it takes ages for anything to arrive because there is no airport, and it all has to come by boat, which takes quite a while due to the fact that the island is incredibly isolated. It's an easy no from me for this one. 64 miles north of Lake Titicaca, nestled into the Peruvian Andes, lies La Rinconada, the highest human habitation on Earth. Highest as in altitude, don't get the wrong idea. The isolated civilization resides, just 4,900 meters or 16,000 feet above sea level, and for the majority of the year, temperatures like to hang out well below freezing. Despite this, La Rinconada is home to a surprising 50,000 incredibly resilient people, which you would have to be to live there because not only is the altitude insane and the temperatures abysmal, the terrain is incredibly dangerous and the entire place is filthy because there are no modern amenities and very little infrastructure, meaning no sanitation systems, no plumbing, and no trash pickup. So why do people live there? Well, simply put, gold. There are gold mines in the hills, and because there are no regulations in the area, those who work in the mines are paid in rocks taken from the mines that may or may not contain gold. I don't mean to be mean, but I feel like anyone who decides to uproot their family to such a terrible place in the hopes of maybe getting sent home with a rock that might contain gold probably has a pretty bad gambling addiction. But then again, that's just one woman's opinion. What is not just one woman's opinion, though, is the fact that the name of this community looks incredibly hard to pronounce. But of course, for all of you, I'm gonna give it my best shot. Ittoqqortoormiit. Ittoqqortoormiit is an isolated community in Greenland, and it's known globally as the most remote inhabited community in the Western Hemisphere. There are 450 residents who, for 9 months out of the year, experience freezing temperatures so cold that it causes the sea around the village to completely freeze, cutting off accessibility to the outside world. Of course, in the case of an emergency, helicopters are deployed to the area, and in the 3 warmer months, boats, but still, I can imagine the feeling is incredibly isolating nonetheless. Surprisingly, despite missing effective methods of transportation, the town is equipped with a power station, an engineering workshop, a local school, and a satellite that allows locals to send and receive emails and faxes. Fancy. You know what's not fancy though? This place. Migingo Island, one of the most cramped islands in the world. It was first settled in 1991 by 2 Kenyan fishermen who took a liking to it because of its deep surrounding waters filled with Nile perch that made the island a fisherman's dream, a sentiment shared by many, apparently, because currently the island, which is only roughly half an acre in size, is home to 500 people. 500 people, 4 bars, a hair salon, 1 tiny port, and several houses of adult pleasure. The island is filthy and phone service is spotty, meaning if you have a medical emergency while on Migingo and you believe in God, your best bet really is to just start praying. You ever been so hot you decided to live in a tunnel? Well, the people of Coober Pedy in Australia certainly have, which is why 2,500 of them are currently living underground or in the ground or in the hills. You see, in 1951, a teenager discovered a gemstone in Coober Pedy, which led to miners exploring the area, which led to the discovery of a massive opal mine that is now responsible for 70% of the world's opal production. Because opal is an incredibly expensive stone, miners became desperate to work on the site. Because Coober Pedy is so hot, they also became desperate for some peace and cold. And so they took up residence inside of the earth in man-made tunnels. The tunnels kept them cool in the day and warm at night when the temperatures drastically dropped. It is an unreal sight. The town of Coober Pedy has running water, electricity, medical facilities, and schools. And although there is still some mining going on, the town now makes most of its money through tourism, which makes sense. It's really cool. And it's expanding too. New tunnels are constantly being built in the area to accommodate a growing population. I'm not exactly sure if you would consider the modern version of this town to be still isolated, but it's really cool, so I figured it deserved a mention. Now, if you had to pick one of these civilizations to live in, which one would it be and why? Let me know below. I'll see you next time.